In July 2026, during a press conference at the NATO summit, the U.S. president made a startling claim. He announced that the, quote, Islamic Republic of Japan had fired 111 missiles at a U.S. aircraft carrier. Almost instantly, the clip dominated platforms like TikTok and X. Millions of users shared it as a viral slip of the tongue, filling timelines with jokes about an imminent American bombing campaign against Tokyo. The reality is that Japan is a close U.S. ally with a strictly pacifist constitution and a Muslim population near zero. The intended target of the statement was the actual nation firing missiles in the Middle East, the Islamic Republic of Iran. We have to examine the cost of these blurred signals when they occur during an active international crisis. The statement was made at a high-stakes NATO summit in Ankara, Turkey. The president was standing right next to Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, attempting to project unity during an active international crisis. To understand the stakes, we have to look at how international relations work. World leaders rely on strategic signaling. Every public word spoken is a deliberate weapon used to project military power and establish deterrence. In a room full of allies and adversaries, a misfired signal changes the math of the conflict. By July 2026, the United States and Iran were locked in an escalating military conflict. A fragile ceasefire had just collapsed, and Iranian forces were actively attacking commercial tankers navigating the critical choke point of the Strait of Hormuz. In response, the U.S. military launched a massive retaliation. CENTCOM directed airstrikes against over 80 Iranian targets, including radar sites and missile batteries, to defend vessels like the USS Abraham Lincoln. This was the exact military action the president was trying to announce at the summit. But the Iran-Japan mix-up was part of a larger pattern of communication failures that day. Just moments before, the U.S. president mistakenly addressed his Ukrainian counterpart directly as President Putin. For nuclear and near-nuclear adversaries, these press conferences are carefully analyzed. Foreign intelligence agencies parse every syllable to calculate American resolve and map out the exact red lines that will trigger a military response. When a leader scrambles country names and key treaties on the world stage, that deterrence evaporates. It creates a vacuum of uncertainty, opening the door for unintended escalation, where adversaries miscalculate what the United States will actually tolerate. Then there is the Allied perspective. Japanese officials suddenly found their country misidentified as a rogue state launching 100 missiles at an American aircraft carrier. This followed previous friction points with Tokyo. Just months prior, during a sensitive bilateral meeting, the U.S. president made an inappropriate joke to the Japanese prime minister, comparing modern military strategy to the surprise attack on Pearl Harbor. Faced with this, Japan deploys an institutional mechanism known as strategic patience. They deliberately ignore unpredictable presidential rhetoric, smiling for the cameras, while quietly working to secure concrete economic policies and trade agreements. But ignoring these errors requires an immense amount of effort. It creates an invisible diplomatic tax that drains the cohesion of the alliance. Partner nations are forced to spend their time and energy managing the mood of the U.S. executive branch, rather than working together to manage actual global threats. That diplomatic confusion doesn't stay confined to press briefing rooms. It bleeds directly into the global economy, where military friction reliably triggers panic across financial markets. The Strait of Hormuz is one of the world's most critical supply routes for commercial shipping, and during the summit, it was an active war zone threatened by hostile forces boarding and attacking commercial tankers. This chart shows the immediate financial fallout, as summit confusion compounded with regional strikes. You see a sharp upward spike in global oil prices as energy supplies are threatened, crossing paths with a sudden 1.24% drop in cryptocurrency as investors pull their capital. Ultimately, highly energy-dependent nations bear the immediate, literal cost of a superpower's unstable messaging. A careless word drops right to the bottom line. Behind closed doors, the compounding errors at the summit fueled a quiet global reaction. International whisper networks and diplomatic cables began circulating concerns regarding presidential cognitive decline and the potential risk of invoking the 25th Amendment. This loss of confidence arrived at the worst possible moment. It happened exactly when NATO required unshakable unity to counter rising military threats across Europe and the Middle East. These verbal errors create specific friction points in diplomatic and economic networks. They reveal how a slip of the tongue can force allies into damage control and send oil prices climbing before the press conference even ends.